I decided to focus on fast fashion for my toxicological issue. I kind of did this because I can feel guilty to, being bored at a doctor's office, going through my phone, targeted ad comes up that's, a little bit too well targeted. I'm like, dang, that's cute, $5, done. 2 days later, it's on my porch. Yeah, so not cool, but cool in the fact that it's convenient and really appealing for us people with low budgets. But sometimes we don't see exactly what happens from the time we see the picture of the product on our phone to when it appears on our front porch magically. So I just kind of wanted to talk about what fast fashion is, give you a brief history, and then look at the life cycle of a garment at each step and the toxicological effects it produces at each step. Each one of them is different, which kind of sucks, but yeah, we'll talk about it. So the history of fast fashion. So back in the good old days, like 20 years ago, so really not that long ago, things used to be a lot more simple. So there's what's called fashion seasons. There's like 2 per year. You'd have your spring and summer and then your fall and winter seasons. Retailers would forecast what they thought would be cool in those seasons months in advance, mass produce what they thought would be cool, and then when that season fell, they would put that product out in the market. Then cool things like, social media and TV and the internet kind of came out that made the general public a lot more fashion conscious and up with the trends. So that made, by the time that these clothes that were forecasted came on the market, they were obsolete. We were already onto the next trend, which put some pressure on retailers to kind of keep up with the quickly changing trends while maintaining low price, which led to poor quality materials and offshore manufacturing for low labor costs. So yeah, we went from roughly 2 fashion seasons to maybe 100. There's new trends, thousands of new styles coming out on some of these online websites every single day. So yeah, things aren't so simple anymore. We talked about the demand. We'll talk about the supply now. I kind of wanted to focus on Bangladesh. That's the second leading producer of textiles in the world, the first being China. But anyway, Bangladesh has 3,000 or 4,000 factories for textiles, I believe. So yeah, they're doing a lot there. There's a lot of social effects, labor rights violations. So not only are they extremely underpaid, there's children working. It's very unsafe. This is a picture from, I think it was called the Rana Plaza in 2013. There was 5 factories in this building when it collapsed, killing 1,300 people and injuring 2,600, I believe. This is not an uncommon occurrence. Fires and collapses happen all the time due to the high unregulation of this building. Because of the unregulation, people also fail to wear PPE, so they're exposed to toxic chemicals all the time. And then what also is unregulated is waste. So all these toxic waste chemicals just get dispersed right out into the environment. So I kind of wanted to focus on the Burganga River. This is kind of the main lifeblood of a lot of cities in Bangladesh, like Dhaka. So, locals use this for bathing, drinking. This guy here's brushing his teeth or something with it. Agriculture. And it's not even good enough for agriculture anymore. So among, other things like plastics and dead animals and medical waste, the dyes and chemicals have made it, from these textile companies, are the biggest contributor and have made it the 3rd most contaminated river in the world. It can have a pH of up to 8.5, which is crazy considering it should be at 7. Sediments are just loaded with toxic metals, and the statistic is kind of crazy. So the concentrations of cadmium and chromium, so some heavy metals, are 6 times greater than the WHO's maximum guidelines. So we kind of talked about this in class. This kind of forced Bangladesh to use groundwater, which is 1, limited, 2, surrounded by sediment that's full of arsenic. So that's where the sonar filters came in. But, maybe if their rivers were somewhat okay, they wouldn't need to use those. Anyway, here's kind of some more general statistics on offshore garment production. So this kind of symbolizes the life cycle of a garment. You can see that most of the negative climate impact comes from production itself, 42%. And then here you could just see some quick stats, like there's way too much water for one garment. It's 5% of the world's greenhouse emissions, 2.1 billion tons of CO2 is dumped annually in the atmosphere, which is more than shipping and aviation industries combined. The World Bank estimates that 20% of wastewater worldwide comes from textile dyes. So I keep saying stuff like, oh, the workers and their toxic chemicals, no, which is you know, kind of broad toxic chemicals, but I'm being broad because there are roughly 8,000 synthetic chemicals used in these processes. I found this cute little chart online that kind of lays out the main players here. Most of them we've talked about their modes of actions and whatnot in class. This just kind of shows us, okay, well, it's a probable carcinogen, short-term, skin irritants, hormone disruptors, whether it's long or short-term. All of these things have one, if not two, check marks. So, all very bad. So why? Why do we put these things in clothing that we put on our bodies? Well, flame retardants, they stop clothing from burning, particularly in kids' clothes. I guess we don't want our children burning. That causes infertility, neurotoxicity, endocrine disruption, and cancer. PFAs help them be resistant to water, oil, heat, and stains. Cancer. Lead and chromium are heavy metals, stabilize color in the dyeing process, looks like those vibrant colors. Cancer, and then more short-term if you get on your skin in large amounts, dermatitis. I can never pronounce this one. Phthalates. Those are put in our activewear for an anti-odor kind of effect, and it's also used in printing inks. This causes endocrine disruption, cancer. Azo dyes that accommodates for 60 to 70% of fabric colorant, so that the really vibrant stuff that when you wash it, it ruins all of your whites if you don't separate it. So those contain aromatic amines because they come off so easily. They cause skin allergies and dermatitis, and of course, long-term cancer. VOCs, so these are the solvents kind of used in the volatile organic compounds. These are used in the manufacturing process. So while your product will come out with a wrinkle-free finish, the workers are exposed to horrible gases. Like I said, in places like Bangladesh, they don't really have PPE to protect from this, but causes developmental reproductive problems, skin eye irritation, liver and respiratory problems, and cancer. All of these things can easily cause DNA damage. So cancer is definitely an underlying thing. And then they're all also PBTs, so they last forever. They're really, really hard. They don't degrade normal biological processes, so they just build up in your body. So maintenance, you have to wash your clothes, right? I kind of looked at a study that was able to quantify some numbers for when you wash your clothes, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, the mechanical and chemical stresses during washing is what releases, for every, 300 milligram per kilogram washed fabric, there are 640,000 to 1,500,000 microfibers released. It's a crap ton. Majority of these are average, type of length of 360 to 660 micrometers with a diameter of 12 to 16 micrometers. Considering that a microplastic is defined as anything less than 5 millimeters, not micrometers, but millimeters, that's pretty dang small, meaning it can pass through water treatment plants very easily, becoming a primary source of microplastics in the oceans, accounting for 35% of global release of microplastics, just from washing your clothes. So why do we care? Well, we care because of the chemical composition of these microplastics. A lot of them are some of the major players that we just talked about. All of these are PBTs, and so yeah, they're persist in the environment, bioaccumulative, and toxic. That is not good. Physical properties, I don't know if they're big enough. Things that ingest them, it can cause tissue damage, digestive blockage, stuff like that. And then one of the scarier things I thought was the absorption capabilities. So they're able to absorb other toxic chemicals in the environment, so not only what they're already carrying, they can pick up more, which kind of adds to the bioaccumulative effect when they're ingested. So yeah, I kind of want to avoid that. Okay, so once you wash your garment, releasing a bunch of microplastics, and then it gets a hole in it, you decide to throw it away. Here's some stats for what happens then. So the EPA estimates that the generation of textiles in the US in 2018, 17 million tons, a lot. It's 5.8% of total solid waste for that year. A lot of people, buy clothes and then it doesn't fit or something and they never wear them. I guess $11 billion in the UK worth of clothes like that. And they throw them away. Speaking of which, the average person throws away roughly 80 pounds of textiles per year. Every second, the equivalent of one garbage truck of textiles is being landfilled or burned. So this kind of shows us some chemical fate of some of these toxic chemicals that we talked about. So landfill, they go into the soil or groundwater, burned, they volatilize, be put in the atmosphere, and then get carried to wherever they're going to go. And then once they're in a landfill, decomposition processes can also cause stuff like methane and other toxic chemicals that also get in the groundwater and soil. Like we said, PBTs, they are going to take hundreds of years to break down because the bonds in these chemicals are so strong. So biological processes just can't do it quickly. With this, there's a lot of social injustices, not my backyard kind of crap. So a lot of high-income countries send this stuff to low, medium-income countries. You know, they think they're being charitable. So like one, they might send them there as like donations, like hand clothing. Or two, they might send them there to be graded or whatever that means, since they don't actually really decompose, just for a low-wage job. So to try to provide jobs. Either way, it ends up as solid waste in countries where municipal waste systems are lacking, and this happens. So yeah, not a good problem to have. Mitigation. I couldn't find a whole lot actually being done right now, which is really, really sad. So the United Nations Alliance on Sustainable Fashion, so the United Nations is looking at this, and they're just saying they're encouraging these things to create a push. Yeah, a push only does so much, but you know, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to develop more biodegradable fabrics. Companies that are just going like more green, like there's this one called Nudie Jeans that uses organic cotton, offers free repairs for life, and get a discount if they hand in their old jeans. Customers do, so that's kind of cool. Or this other thing in Spain, EcoWelf, creates shoes from algae and recycled plastic. It's part of an upcycling kind of thing. And then Patagonia actually creates fleeces from bottles, so recycled bottles. So that stuff's kind of cool. But yeah, federal reform, there's not a whole lot. There's the Fabric Act, that's in the US only. It only is really good for regulations and for garment workers, but can't really go beyond that. What we do need is more sustainable fibers, kind of like, you know, what I was talking about, stuff that's biodegradable. Corporate sustainability. So corporations need to get certified in things like the Fair Trade Act and know that they're making their products ethically and, you know, just good products that don't use a lot of chemicals with horrible conditions. But there are things like the Fair Trade Act that certify companies to do this. But we need to be aware of greenwashing, because if buzzwords are used all the time, like this is eco-friendly, this is green, this is organic, it doesn't necessarily mean that like they could not be adhering to any of the things that they need to be certified as that. So I think more regulation on that should be done. Though we can't really do anything outside of our own country. We can maybe influence other countries with our trade policy, like putting caps on how much we'll be willing to take from these low-income countries, or, you know, putting prices or hiring the taxes on imports. Kind of like what Kenya and Rwanda and countries like that did with their unwanted secondhand clothes that we sent to them. They put some regulations on that in trade because they don't want clothing mountains there anymore. So yeah, they put stuff like higher taxes and incentives for locals to buy things from local manufacturers. Then obviously the role of us as the consumer, we can get our clothes repaired. We cannot buy crap clothes that are gonna wear you down so quickly in the first place. We could buy things that are biodegradable. We cannot fall into targeted ads and fast fashion, and yeah, if there's no demand, then no need for supply. So yeah, here are my sources, and thank you so much for listening.